And Josh, I think you heard you say that, let's talk about immigration, let's talk about childhood transition. And it is Pride Month, so we might as well talk about childhood transition, because we're still giving puberty blockers to kids that will render them sterile. We're giving cross-sex hormones to adolescents, double vasectomies to 14-year-olds, and sterilizing genital surgeries to 18-year-olds in Nova Scotia, even some as young as 17. And we see all of these other countries like Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, UK, Finland, the US, they're imposing tight restrictions on this stuff while Canada continues to double down on it. And I actually submitted House of Commons petition E-7314 to have Bill C-4, which is the one that imposes 5-year jail sentences on any parent who seeks talk therapy to alleviate their child's gender dysphoria and help them feel comfortable in their natural body, amended so that they can seek that therapy. And I've already had Garnett Genuis decline it without comment, and Leslyn Lewis decline it without comment. I think it's because of the unanimous vote on Bill C-4, where all of the conservative hegemony, Pierre Poilievre included, voted in favor of it, that none of the rank and file will talk about it because they're afraid of losing their party status. So what do you think we have to do to get conservatives to talk about this issue?
Actually, I actually want to allude to something that you're kind of in the middle of right now.
Sure.
I know you and Billboard Chris got into it a little bit.
He blocked me.
Yeah. I saw that. Oh yeah, I guess there's nothing really happening anymore now that he blocked you. But I do know, I agree with the point where there was obviously a little bit of, people were a little tentative to talk about it, I would say. Because they were scared of how, again, the whole thing, the scare tactics used from the left of we'll say this about you if you go there. And so I think that was very much permeated in the Conservative Party. If I remember with Bill C-4, that was a weird, I agree with the positive talk. I agree that really shouldn't have been in that. But if I remember correctly, especially at the time when I got voted in, again, you're the expert on this, so correct me if I'm wrong. I remember at the time that it was pushed as when you say it was a conversion therapy bill, and when people think conversion therapy, they're thinking, oh, I'm gonna electrocute a child from being gay. And I remember that being the political pressure on it at the time. And if I remember, was that the case?
I think that is the perception amongst the general population, but as legislatures who would have read the bill, the problem is in the definition section of conversion therapy, and there are 6 criteria, any one of which you meet, then you're guilty of conversion therapy and you face a 5-year jail sentence. 4 of those criteria out of 6 pertain to transgenderism. So the focus was never on gays. It was on pushing the trans agenda.
Yeah, so that's what I remember. So and that's kind of what I remember. So 2021, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, December 2021.
Yeah, and so I think that's what I remember. Especially this is the convoy changed a lot of things in our public conversation, and that's when conservatives stopped caring about what the left was thinking about them for the most part. 2021, that was they were very much controlled of hey, if I go forward and try to go against this bill, everyone thinks I want to electrocute gay people. That's kind of what the thought process was, and that's my understanding of what I saw from a diplomacy perspective of why they definitely wouldn't have gone there. Now, if we advance to 2026, I was, that moment with Billboard Chris and Pierre, I was encouraged by. I thought that was a good positive moment forward. The fact he's talking about it publicly, I think that's a good thing. I think the work what you've done, what Billboard Chris has done, I think has moved them in that direction. Could I be wrong, or you don't think that's genuine?
No, I thought it was a pretty disingenuous answer because Billboard Chris actually referenced Bill 16 and Bill C-4 in the question itself, and Pierre didn't address either one of those points. And what he said was that when we're the government, yes, it will be our policy to oppose these things. But what about right now? This is still happening right now, and I personally think it's time for Canada to join the civilized world and start banning this barbaric cultural practice, but we can't even get our politicians to talk about it. Mind you, Carolyn Finley just won the Conservative leadership in BC, and she's talking about it, so it is a winning issue. But we still can't get the federal Conservatives to talk about it at all.
Yeah, so I think, I think some of the work that you've been doing, I think, has been positive. I think, like, some of the, it's amazing. I'll say this. Like, I know you're not too happy with Pierre's answer on it, but, like, if I'm being quite honest with you, like, that's pressure that, like, two people in this country did. Jeff and Billboard Chris. I know they're at odds right now, but them together putting pressure on Pierre and the Conservative Party got Pierre to talk about it very openly and blatantly. I think that's a push in the right direction. And that's just two people. If we continue using our voice and talking about it in a way that people can understand it and get it, like, I like the point you bring up, like, hey, these countries have abandoned, which we see in their Canadian culture as progressive countries. I think and it's a winning issue. People, again, it's one of those things that people don't want to talk about, but when you start putting facts and stats to what's happening, that can really push it. And so, like, if we're being honest, politicians always respond to public sentiment. And I'll be honest, you and Billboard Chris, I feel like have done a successful job of pushing that forward and being bold. I actually want to call this out. We had this conversation one-on-one, but I'll bring it up here because I think it was pretty cool.
Sure.
Jeff was known for going into the forest during the forest band. And I remember anyone. And well, this is the thing.
I haven't heard any conservatives mention that either.
Yeah, which I'll talk about it. You got it filming right now. I'll be on. I have filming too. I think this is one of the moments I'll say personally is I went on my show, and when it first hit, I was the first one to be like, this just feels like a move. Like this, it just feels like you're just trying to get attention and just cause issues for no reason. I said that, I'll be honest. I am on the record, that's online, you can find that. And then when the court hearing came and he won, and everyone could see how unjustified that law was, and he could stand there and be like, yeah, I did that. I was like, I get it now. I get why he did it. It makes sense to me. I think that was such a great and bold move on Jeff's part. And congratulations to you on that. And I think that's a big thing. So it's moves like this that'll keep moving it forward. People like me have to use my voice too to keep pushing it forward. Just to keep having the conversation. And I know it sucks. It's like moving a boulder uphill. But I think it can be had. There's even I have family and friends, people who in their family are trans. They'll even say themselves, like, yeah, we want to keep this stuff. Like, this stuff's nuts, and like these are people that have experienced it and who still love their child very much, but they see the issues of it. And I think that is a winning issue when you're hearing people who have gone through it themselves are even talking about it and still talk about it positively. But they're still like, yeah, the government needs to relax on that. So I think, I think it's just constantly bringing it forward, keeping it public. Yeah.
I think I wanted just to draw on one point because just part of this conversation, I think it just kind of exposes or accentuates one of the problems that we have in Canada. One of the biggest problems, as I see it, is that Canadians think their government should be responsible for everything, right? That our politicians should be in charge of bringing these conversations forward, and in some cases, of course, they should be, right? But there are some cases where there are such hot topics that it is only natural for parties who need to be careful and maybe are a little bit too cautious in wanting to appeal to the middle, and maybe they are too cautious from time to time, but in taking cues from citizens. Like, I think sometimes you just have to do that. Like, if you want to remain a party that the average Canadian can look to, waiting and seeing what the message is, it might not be the bravest thing to do, but Canadians really sometimes just need to bring it up. Like, sometimes that's our responsibility as citizens to bring it up, and that's what the convoy did, right? The convoy brought it up very loudly and wonderfully, I think. But if citizens aren't comfortable bringing things up and they just wait and sit back and wait for their politicians to bring it up, they're going to be waiting forever, right? Because your motivation as a politician, as a person who's been in politics I've been in politics for 10 minutes, okay? So, as I said earlier, so I'm not, I don't like younger typical politician, but politicians have this motivation, right? And it's to get reelected, to get elected over and over and over again until you retire. And I don't like that. I'm a big fan of 2 terms and you're out, right? But that's not how our system works right now. But expecting people who are motivated by those repeat elections and just getting reelected, this is my job, this is what I do, this is my identity, I'm in my Ottawa bubble, expecting those people to move the conversation forward isn't productive, right? Because then that you're just delegating that incredibly complex and messy civic responsibility to people who, to be quite frank with you, just aren't built systemically to have those conversations. So citizens have to move those conversations forward.
Yeah, we did. You see, he was just going in for his pension. He wanted to make sure he got his 2 terms, he got his pension.
And look, not everyone in Ottawa is like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know a ton of MPs personally, but I do know that, you know, the system is set up to incentivize certain behavior. And some of that behavior is good, and some of that behavior is not so good.
He also wanted his Maserati. Just keep that in mind too.
Oh my God, the watches.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the bling, baby. Oh, I love the champagne socials, baby.